Frank was the complete opposite of what you'd expect from someone in his situation. My husband and I met him during our trip south through Spain. We were on the ferry crossing the Mediterranean from southern Spain over to Tangier, Morocco. It was one of those perfect sunny days. Everyone was up on deck, snapping photos of the famous Rock of Gibraltar looming right there off the port side. The guy who stood out most was this spry older man, probably in his late 70s or early 80s. He was decked out in a loud Hawaiian shirt splashed with palm trees and hibiscus flowers, Bermuda shorts that had seen better decades, sockless loafers scuffed from miles of wandering, and a bright green Yankees cap with a single defiant feather tucked into the band like a badge of mischief. A digital camera dangled from his neck on a worn strap, and he clutched a beer can like it was an old friend keeping him steady. Frank was cracking one-liners, telling corny jokes that made even the most reserved travelers crack smiles, and bouncing from one group of tourists to the next with this infectious grin that seemed to light up the entire deck. My name is Aisha Rahman, and in that season of my life, I was 34, a schoolteacher from Mingora in Pakistan's Swat Valley, traveling with my husband Bilal on what felt like the fragile dream we'd stitched together from years of quiet sacrifices. Every spare rupee from after-school tutoring, every evening we chose tea at home instead of dinner out, every weekend we skipped family gatherings to save a little more. It had all led to this, our first grand adventure beyond the mountains that had cradled and sometimes confined us. Spain had already wrapped us in its warm embrace. Lazy afternoons in Seville's orange-scented patios, the taste of Jamón Ibérico melting on our tongues, the golden light that turned every street into a painting. But this ferry crossing felt like crossing a threshold into something unknown and irreversible. I stood at the railing in a soft cream shalwar kameez with a light dupatta fluttering against the salt breeze, my hand in Bilal's. He carried his small leather notebook everywhere, sketching quick lines of the sea, the rock, the faces around us, moments he said he wanted to keep forever, even if the paper faded. We weren't the type to shout across decks or join the loud photo crowds. We preferred the quiet corners, whispering to each other about how the rock looked like a great stone lion dozing in the sun, how the water shimmered like shattered glass. That's when Frank noticed us, two brown faces among the Europeans and backpackers, holding hands like teenagers on honeymoon. He ambled over with that loose, seafaring stride, beer in one hand, grin splitting his weathered face. "Hey there, folks," he said, voice warm with the easy cadence of Western Canada. "Name's Frank, Calgary born and raised, though these days home is wherever the next flight takes me. And you two? Pakistan? Well, I'll be damned, you're a long, long way from those beautiful mountains." I felt my cheeks warm, a mix of shyness and delight. My English was careful, practiced from years of teaching it to restless teenagers, but it flowed easier here on this open sea. "Yes, Swat Valley, Mingora. This is our first time so far from home." "Swat Valley," he repeated, like tasting the words. "I've seen pictures, green valleys, snow peaks, rivers like silver threads. Looks like paradise. Man, I'd give anything to walk those trails someday, breathe that clean mountain air." He took a long pull from his beer, then leaned on the railing right beside us, as comfortable as if we'd invited him into our living room. "Life's too damn short not to chase the pretty places, don't you think?" Bilal smiled, his quiet artist's eyes lighting up. "That's exactly why we're here, to see, to feel, to remember." Frank's gaze softened under the brim of that silly cap. "Good for you, real good. Don't wait like I did for so many years." He glanced out at the rock, the sunlight catching the edges of his eyes in a way that made them glint with something deeper than amusement. "Me? I'm chasing it hard right now. Every sunrise, every sunset, every stranger's story, before the clock finally says time's up." We fell into easy conversation then, the kind that happens only when the world is moving beneath you and home feels far away. He asked about our favorite spots in Spain,
We asked about his favorite memories from Calgary winters. Frank had retired after 30 years teaching high school history, shaping young minds with tales of empires risen and fallen. He loved baseball, rooted for the Blue Jays, but wore the Yankees cap just to stir things up. Life needs a little friendly rivalry. His wife, Ellen, had passed the year before, peacefully in their own bed, surrounded by the quilts she'd sewn herself. She'd never liked to fly, planes made her anxious, so they'd stuck to road trips through the Rockies, campfires under pine trees, quiet evenings with Buddy the Samoyed curled at their feet.
Buddy. He spoke of that big white dog like a son. Fluffy as a cloud, stubborn as a mule. Howls at the moon like he's got something important to say. Greets me every time I come home like I've been gone a decade. Keeps the house from feeling too empty. I could see it so clearly. A modest house in a snowy suburb, the door opening to a whirlwind of white fur and joy. Frank laughing through whatever pain the day had brought. It made something inside me twist. Tenderness mixed with a sudden, sharp awareness of how fragile happiness can be. The talk turned deeper as the ferry cut through the strait. I noticed the travel stickers plastered across his battered canvas bag, faded icons from Paris, Rome, Istanbul, Kyoto, places I'd only dreamed of. "You've seen so much of the world," I said softly. "Working on it. Figured if I'm living on borrowed time, I might as well spend every last borrowed minute seeing what I can." Bilal's voice was gentle. "Borrowed time?" Frank didn't flinch. He simply lifted the hem of his bright shirt, revealing the thick, angry zigzag scar that slashed across his belly like a map of battles fought and lost. "Cancer. Stage 4. Spread everywhere. Lungs, liver, bones. Doctors handed me 6 months, 2 years back. I told him, thanks for the opinion, but I'm not quite ready to listen." He tapped the scar with 2 fingers, almost affectionately. Surgery carved out what they could reach, then a clot tried to finish the job in my lung. Now it's a daily cocktail of pills. He pulled out a small plastic pill organizer, the kind that rattles like a tiny maraca. "This red one's for thinning the blood so I don't throw another clot. Blue for the pain that creeps in at night. White for the blood pressure. Green for the kidneys that are hanging on by a thread. My little rainbow army keeping me upright." My throat closed. Tears pricked hot behind my eyes. "I'm so sorry, Frank." He shook his head, smile never wavering. "Don't waste sorry on me, Aisha. Sorry doesn't change the color of this sea or the way the light hits that rock. Sorry keeps you indoors. This," he swept his arm toward the horizon, "this is what matters. Gibraltar right there, Africa waiting on the other side. Beats any hospital window I've ever stared out of." Silence settled between us then, soft as the sea spray. The ferry's engines thrummed like a heartbeat. Gulls cried overhead. I thought of my own life back in Mingora, the classroom filled with bright-eyed girls who still believed the world could be kind, the worry lines on my mother's face when the valley's troubles flared, the way Bilal and I had fought to carve out this one beautiful escape. Cancer had always felt like a distant shadow, something in newspapers or whispered about at elderly relatives. Now it stood here in a Hawaiian shirt, drinking beer, refusing to be diminished. "You travel alone?" I asked, voice barely above the wind. "Yep." Ellen hated planes, said they felt like metal birds tempting fate. After she was gone, I just started. Mike, my boy in Texas, frets every time I board a flight, calls me weekly. "Dad, you're gonna drop dead in some airport lounge." I tell him, "Son, better that than rotting on the couch watching game shows." He laughs, but I hear the worry. Comes up for Thanksgiving with his girlfriend. Brings ribs that could make you cry, they're so good. And Buddy's the one who really keeps me going.
I pictured the reunion, Frank opening the door, the dog launching himself like a snowball, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook, Frank dropping to his knees, burying his face in that thick white fur, whispering, "Hey, buddy, Daddy's home." The image blurred through sudden tears. "Aren't you afraid?" The words escaped before I could catch them. Of dying? Of what comes after? Frank turned to me fully then. No bravado, no deflection, just raw, steady honesty. Afraid? Hell yes, some nights when the pain wakes me up and the house is too quiet. I lie there staring at the ceiling, thinking about Ellen, about Mike, about Buddy, waiting for a man who might not come back. But fear? Fear's a thief. It steals the daylight, ruins the view, makes every step heavier. This cancer, it's riding shotgun whether I like it or not. So I decided if it's coming along anyway, I'm gonna make it see the world too. Paris at dawn, Barcelona's streets at midnight, maybe even those SWAT mountains if God gives me one more ticket. You only get one life, Aisha. One. Might as well fill it so full it overflows.
His words landed like stones in still water, rippling through me. I felt something shift inside, a loosening of old fears I'd carried without realizing. The ferry was sliding past the rock now, its sheer face glowing amber gold, shadows carving deep into the stone like ancient stories etched there. Tourists surged the rails, but Frank stayed with us a moment longer. "Tell you what," he said, "if I'm still drawing breath, I'll find my way to SWAT someday. You show me those green valleys. I'll bring Buddy if I can smuggle him on the plane." He winked, then leaned in and blew an exaggerated air kiss toward me. "Stay beautiful, Aisha. Keep teaching those kids to dream big. And Bilal, keep those sketches coming. The world needs more beauty made by hand." He straightened, tipped his cap, and started whistling Forever Young, the Bob Dylan version, slow and wistful. Then he wandered toward the bow, camera raised, capturing the rock one last time, as if each click might freeze the moment against time itself. Bilal squeezed my hand so tight it hurt. "He's unforgettable." I could only nod, tears slipping free now. "Yes, he really is." We watched until Frank blended into the crowd, a small, bright figure against the vast blue. I wondered if he'd ever print those photos, sit in his quiet house with Buddy's head on his lap, flipping through them slowly. Would he smile at the memory of the Pakistani couple who'd listened, really listened? Would he feel, even for a second, less alone? The rest of our journey unfolded like a dream. Tangier's chaotic souks alive with cumin and mint, Fez's labyrinthine Medina where every turn held a new wonder, Chef Shawan's blue-washed streets cool underfoot, camel treks across Sahara dunes under a sky exploding with stars. But Frank traveled with us, a gentle ghost in my thoughts. His laugh echoed when we tasted sweet mint tea. His scar reminded me of resilience when we grew tired. His words, "You only get one life," became a quiet mantra on hard days back home. Mingora welcomed us back with its familiar rhythm, school bells cutting through morning mist, the azan floating over rooftops, children running to class with notebooks clutched like treasures. I returned to my classroom, but something had changed. I told Frank's story, not as gossip, but as a gift, to friends over steaming cups of chai. A man from Canada taught me that courage doesn't roar, it whispers jokes and whistles old songs. To my students, especially the girls who worried about futures narrowed by tradition or trouble, there's a grandfather out there who carries pain like luggage, but still dances on a boat. He says, "See the world, love it fiercely, even when it hurts." Years rolled on, heavy with change. A pandemic locked the world down, then released it scarred. Bilal and I welcomed our daughter, Noor. Dark eyes like her father's, a laugh that fills rooms, a curiosity that reminds me daily why we fight to keep dreaming. I still teach, still sketch trips we'll take someday, and every so often, when the valley feels too small or the news too dark, I think of Frank. Did he make it to another continent? Did he see one more sunrise from a foreign shore? Did Buddy greet him one last time, tail wagging like victory? I don't know. No postcard ever arrived, no email from Calgary. But I don't need proof. Some encounters aren't meant to be tied up neatly. They're meant to live inside you, changing the shape of your heart forever. Frank didn't just share his story that day. He handed me a piece of his light. In a world quick to dim, he showed me how to carry pain without letting it extinguish joy, how to laugh through tears, how to chase beauty even when time is running out. Whenever I see a loud Hawaiian shirt in a crowd, or hear someone whistle an old tune against the wind, or watch my daughter chase bubbles in the sunlight, I feel him near. I whisper to the air, soft as a prayer, "Take care, Frank, wherever you are. Thank you for showing us how to live." And somewhere, I hope he hears it and smiles that same infectious grin.